Welcome to your morning wake up call. Start your day here every day with some motivation and marketing education right here with our SNP family. My name is Lisa McKenzie and I'll be your host today. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you a little bit about how you can take control of your thinking and emotions to keep yourself in a place that is peaceful and productive. So if you're hopping on live this morning, let me know where you're coming in from. And if you're watching the replay, just drop me a hashtag replay down in the comments and I'll make sure to come back in and give you a shout out a little bit later on. Hey, Sarah, good morning. This topic today is really about what we've been having lots of conversations about since pandemic began, which is talking about the one thing you have control over in this time of uncertainty, and that is your inner world, your thinking, your emotional well-being. And while for many of us, that sounds easier said than done, and I get it. Hey, Jenny, welcome from Alberta. Your brain is like, I don't like it. I can't control it. I can't just control my thinking. I can't just control my emotions. I've got all these thoughts and feelings and things that are causing me frustration and fear and sadness and, just all that stuff. It's not so easy to do. But I'm here today to say that you can control your thinking and you can intentionally create your emotional state so you can feel peaceful and happy and grateful and be proactive in the midst of whatever the heck is going on in the world or your life or your family. And the good news is I'm going to help you out by giving you some tools to work with. Good morning, Whitney. Nice to see you. Specifically, I'm going to give you 4 questions to ask yourself, as well as 3 additional tips to keep on track. But I'm also going to challenge you this morning to take ownership of your mental and emotional well-being. And here's the thing, and I do not mean for this to sound insensitive. I hope it's not coming off that way, but we all experience difficult situations in life, and you have to ask yourself, why is it that the same painful event or ongoing circumstance can occur for 2 different people, and one person is left just devastated and depressed, while the other person with that same circumstance, that person remains peaceful and proactive, That event, whatever it is that happens, can be nearly identical, but the impact can be completely different. Like literally it could be completely opposite for one person or another. Just drop me a note down in the comments below if you've ever witnessed this phenomenon, 2 people handling things completely differently. One person might view it as the worst thing that ever happened to them, and they just feel completely devastated about it, while the other person acknowledges, yeah, this sucks, like this is very difficult what I'm going through or we're going through. But that second person somehow sees it as a huge opportunity for their growth and their development. And they also decide that they won't allow that painful circumstance to cause them to suffer or stop. Do you know what I mean? Just let me know. I wonder sometimes what it is that creates such a different outcome. And I think it comes back to that phrase, you may have heard this, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. But whether it's financial hardship or global pandemic or the death of a loved one or a business interruption, you have to look and go, okay, what enables some people to handle and move through life's challenges so much easier than others? Or maybe easier isn't the word. Maybe I should say more effectively than others. And that's really what I want to talk about today, is how you can maintain that peaceful, proactive mindset and feel genuinely good and happy and energized and optimistic, even in the face of adversity, even in the face of loss, even in the midst of pain. I think that the biggest, most prevalent, most universal, challenging circumstance that we can all relate to right now is this COVID-19 pandemic that we're all dealing with. So we're all in this together, right? Experiencing it differently. But what I want you to focus on, or what I want to focus on with you today, is the brighter side of that situation. There are millions of people that are living in fear and stress and anxiety, but there's also millions of people that are living in peace and being productive, and countless people that have decided or found this pandemic to be an opportunity to slow down and connect a little bit more deeply with ourselves and our loved ones. I can tell you, for me personally, this has been like a real awakening. a real realization to pay attention what matters the most. I don't know, what about you? What's the number one positive thing that's come out of pandemic for you? Growth, or whatever it is. Because the reality is there's so much we don't have control over in general right now. And I think it feels that way more so than ever right now because of what's going on. But the reality is this is always the situation in life. There's so much that we don't have control over. I want you to think about how random your life really is. As much as we try to and want to control life and force it and shape it and set our goals and make things happen, when you think about it, most of the opportunities or situations in your life happen kind of by chance or divine intervention or whatever phrase you want to use for that, right? So now the question is, how are you supposed to be happy and grateful and peaceful and proactive when there is so much to be fearful and stressed and anxious about? Well, I'll tell you, it's really very simple. So I say, I'm just going to invite you to consider that what's causing all of our mental and emotional stress is actually our very own thinking. It's our thinking, our mindset, because I don't know if you know this, our brains actually evolved as problem-seeking, problem-creating machines. So as a result, most people wake up and we immediately start looking for problems. And we all do this, by the way, myself included, sometimes, right? Even if you're trying to be proactive and not do it, it's in our nature. It's like your primitive nature. We wake up and our brain starts searching for what's wrong in our lives and what's wrong in the world. And then once we think of one thing wrong, we kind of latch onto it, right? And obsess about it. Do you guys do this? And expand it. And we think of all the possibilities of how that one thing could spin off and create more and more and more problems in our lives, right? And then, we think about what was wrong in the past. And we're worried about what's going to go wrong in the future. So, in fact, it really is our thinking that causes our problems. And I mentioned this phrase earlier, suffering is optional. And think about what's behind that phrase. Whenever we experience suffering, whether it be mild discomfort or, something more intense, there's a specific thought that's causing that reaction, whether you're conscious of it or not. And so the way to end that stress is to really understand what is that specific thought, what's lying behind the feeling of stress. And, what happens is we tend to believe our thoughts instead of what's actual fact. And that causes us to experience that negative mindset. And in a way, it's a good thing because it's like this natural alarm goes off warning us that we're attaching to a thought. So it's kind of a wake-up call to shift your thinking. And so right now, I'm going to give you 4 questions to ask yourself when you find yourself attached to some thought that is causing you suffering. So take a minute right now and think about some situation you've had recently where you were just really upset or angry or sad or otherwise in a negative place. And try to get clear on what thought you were attached to. Maybe you've not had that much success in recruiting in your business and you're feeling distraught or distressed about being able to build your team or earn an income or make progress with it. And this process can apply to personal situations or work situations or whatever you find is causing you distress in your life. So I want you to ask yourself these 4 questions. The very first question about whatever that thought is it true? Is it true? And this is a yes or no question. And if it's a no, then the good news is you can skip straight to question number 3. If you answer yes to question number 1, then you want to ask yourself question number 2. Can you absolutely know that it's true? And again, this is a yes or no answer. Rarely can you answer yes to that question unless it's a fact. And especially when you're dealing with interpersonal relationships, it's more likely to be your projection or interpretation of something versus actual fact. So if you're basing your state of mind on a projection or an interpretation, it's easy enough to shift that interpretation, right? So moving on to the next question, question number 3. What happens when you believe that thought? If you believe the thought that you've attached yourself to, how does it make you feel? Usually it ends up making you feel less than in some way, shape, or form. And that makes it nearly impossible to become productive and get yourself back on track. So we want to shift out of that belief and ask yourself question number 4. Who would you be without that thought? If you could erase that thought completely that you're attached to, that someone doesn't like you, or that someone is more talented than you, or has more leads than you, or whatever it is that has you in a negative frame of mind, who would you become? If you believe the opposite of whatever that thought is, who would you become? And don't you want to become that person? Here's what you need to remember. If you don't think the thought, you won't feel the feeling. The thought creates the feeling. So think of these questions kind of like an emotional stop, drop, and roll. And let me know, do you think you can add these questions into your life to get yourself out of the negative space when it comes on? Because if you can, if you start to incorporate and ask these questions in every aspect of your life, you'll find yourself feeling more free because you're literally erasing the negative thoughts about yourself. What you're doing with this process is taking ownership for your thinking and taking ownership for how you feel. And by default, you're taking action to be proactive in shifting your thoughts to choose the thoughts that serve you. So don't worry, I'm not going to just turn you loose with this. I'm going to give you some solutions on how to do this. And they all revolve around making a commitment to yourself to be the happiest, most grateful, most peaceful, most proactive that you've ever been in your life, no matter what difficult situations you have going on. And that sounds like a difficult thing to accomplish, but here's the key. You've got to realize that anytime you're feeling that negative mindset come on, it's actually coming from your wishing that the thing that is causing it could be different, because you're putting your mind and your energy on the negative thing versus stepping into action and making something happen. So what we want to do is get focused on the inner possibilities, the ability for you to wake up every day and to be at peace with life and events and circumstances exactly as they are. You've got to remember that it is you that can make choices. You can make proactive choices that move you forward in your life, that move you in the direction of where you want to go, ideally to that peaceful state of being, right? Which is where we want to end up. So here's just a few tips. Here's some solutions to minimize or end your negative thoughts. If you've got some of that mental and emotional suffering going on, here's how we're going to help. Number 1, decide how you want to feel. And I mean, put it in writing. In writing, decide how you want to feel. I like to use affirmations and make them in the present. Let me know if you've ever heard of Wayne Dyer's work, Experience the Feeling of the Wish Fulfilled. This means that you can actually imagine yourself in the state of whatever it is that you most wish for. So your affirmation might say something like this: I am fill in the blank. I'm happy, I'm peaceful, I'm grateful, I'm successful, whatever other emotion or state of being that you truly want. But you've got to get clear. You've got to decide how you want to feel. And from that point on, you state that affirmation. And then what the rest of the day is all about is exactly that. You get to feel however you want to feel, but you have to decide what it is that you want, just like in any area of your life. And if you don't say what you want, you're not going to get it. If you don't decide what you want to feel and commit to feeling that way, well, then your feelings, your emotions, your mental health are going to be at the mercy of things outside of you. But when you do decide, you choose, you create with intention, and you are creating that internal state that you want. So the number two way to put an end to your negative thoughts is to stop blaming anything or anyone outside of yourself for how you feel. Again, I would write this down. Stop blaming anything outside of yourself for how you feel. And remember that it's never the thing that you think is causing your pain. It's always you're wishing for it to be different. And there's nothing wrong with wishing that the life you have now were different in the future, right? Because that's real. right? You're not resisting reality there. You're saying that you want to change the future, to take some actions over the next few days or weeks or months or hours to change them. And this is you making that choice about accepting life exactly as it is and then taking actions to change it, not about resisting that life by blaming others. So the third tip I have for you is to practice daily self-care. And self-care can come in lots of ways. Everybody practices it differently. It could be exercise or reading or meditating or prayer or many, many other things. What's key is to have some time and a practice that creates a feeling of happiness, confidence, peace, gratitude, and a balanced emotional state. When you create that emotional state, you can fall back on it whenever you need to throughout your day. I like to do this first thing in the morning. So the point is, you've got to practice that daily self-care. So to recap, let's touch on the 4 questions you can ask yourself to put context around the thought that is attaching you to negativity or negative mindset. 1, is it true? 2, can you absolutely know it's true? 3, what happens when you believe that thought? And 4, who would you be without that thought? And you might find yourself asking these questions multiple times every day, and that's okay, because you've got to ask them to make sure that you're showing up for the people that are struggling right now. Because by asking these questions, you're going to elevate and become a model for the people that are struggling. Because you're becoming a model for them, you're teaching them and showing them that it's possible to come through adversity and achieve that state of being in peace. Next step, remember to write these things down, are your tips. Number 1, decide how you want to feel and put it in writing. Make it an affirmation and repeat it, repeat it, repeat it. Number 2, stop blaming anyone outside of yourself for how you feel. Like, I refuse to blame anyone or anything outside of myself for my internal emotional state. My thoughts and my feelings are 100% my responsibility. And number 3, practice self-care. Make sure you're serving yourself first. And I want to leave you with this thought. We have the opportunity with our intention and with our commitment and with our daily self-care to make a difference for the many, many people around us who are suffering. And when you make a difference for others, by default, you make a difference for yourself. And you'll see your life and your circumstances just naturally elevate. Well, I really hope you got some value from this training today. Show me some love and a hashtag value, or add some hearts down below. Thank you so much for joining me, and be sure to tune in here every day at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on the SMP Social Networking Professionals page for lots of great motivation and more. Now, if you're not already in our free coaching group, just let me know in the comments below. Say invite me, and I will send that link right on over to you. Thanks again, guys. I hope you have a wonderful and fabulous Wednesday.